One Bro Speedrunners, Noobs and Elites, welcome once again. It's the second round of the World Cup of Games. Gents, we are back, and I'm sure our listeners have been waiting with bated breath after we left them on a ridiculous cliffhanger when we couldn't work out what the second round of games were.
Yeah, that was my fault. I put a wrong cell reference in my spreadsheet, and then it took me about an hour to figure out which one it was.
Excel.
Yeah,
it's always Excel's fault. Well, you've fixed it.
Yes,
we now have a known second round of games.
We do.
And it's exciting times.
I'm looking forward to it.
Come on then, give us the ties. Can
Right.
you give us the ties before we go into each individual one?
Got a recap just in case anybody's joining in for the first time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because last week, I mean, as if you don't know, last week we had the group stages of the World Cup of Games, but we ended on a slight cliffhanger because there was an error in the
Goldeneye was in there twice.
Yeah, so we had two Goldeneyes, so we had to sort that out. But this week we are on to the round of 16, Andrew.
Second round.
Yeah. And we have some excellent games that have made it through. So
Yes.
so let's review those.
So the first tie is going to be Ocarina of Time versus Street Fighter 2. Second one is going to be Uncharted 2 versus Civilization 4. That's a big tie for me. That's two of my
really
favourite
is.
games
It's
of all time. Next one is Shadow of the Colossus versus Micro Machines 2, which is Andy's equivalent of what I've just said. Skyrim is up next, and it is against Super Mario Kart.
Oh, crikey.
Yeah.
We've then got Grand Theft Auto 5 against Secret of Monkey Island.
There's some real clashes of style here.
Yeah, they are, aren't they?
God of War versus Tetris.
Well, who knows?
It's like, if it was a fight between like Kratos
Yes.
and the man who invented Tetris, I think there would be
Or
a
just a
clear
Tetris brick.
Yeah, probably the really long, thin one.
Yeah.
We then have Goldeneye versus Fortnight. So that's a bit more similar styles.
It is, isn't it? It's interesting that those two have come up together.
And then Tony Hawk 2 versus Overwatch.
Right then.
Oh,
So
some
there's-
brutal ties in there. There
So,
really are.
The way we're
how
going
are we
to do
gonna
this is we will each have 1 point that we can allocate to a game. So
Like
it's
a
like
goal.
like a goal. So
Yes.
either a game will win 3-0 or it will win 2-1. There's no
Okay.
other options unless someone abstains, in which case it could get
It's very
confusing.
lucky that there's three of us on the pod this
Well,
week.
indeed, we could otherwise we could have done something else, but it's fine.
Okay, nice. So let's get cracking then with the second round tie.
And we're going to alternate who applies their goal first
I was gonna
as
say,
well,
okay,
because
yeah.
because
That does
obviously
have
somebody's
an
going to have a casting vote, effectively, aren't they?
It always
And
affects
so-
the game. The team that scores first.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Right, so we're going for Ocarina of Time versus Street Fighter 2. I've got a prediction about this in my head that I think is going to win. I would just like to say that that there is. We need a Zelda game in the.
Here we go. All right,
end.
calm
All right,
down.
all right.
Who's going first then?
Who would like to go first?
Go on, Andy. You can start.
Where are you applying your goal, Andy?
So say what's the it's
Ocarina of Time versus
Street
Street
Fighter
Fighter 2.
Now, see,
Not Turbo.
I didn't play Ocarina of Time a massive amount, although I did spend a long time watching an old flatmate of mine play it. So I watched a lot more than I played, and it was really, really engaging to watch. I mean, it was really enjoyable to watch. But Street Fighter 2, that is a nailed-on classic. It is one of the big games of all time.
Oh,
Exactly.
for
So the first goal is scrambling in at the near post, Street Fighter 2.
Oh, shit! We should have had football sounds. Yeah. So Matt,
I'll
I
go. So,
think I know what's going to happen here.
well, I've got to give a bit of a shout out to Street Fighter because that was back when I did enjoy fighting games. I don't really play them anymore. I don't find that one-on-one fighting game very interesting anymore. But I did have a lot of fun with it when I was younger. It's a classic, like Andy said. But Ocarina of Time is just what it is, the highest game ranked on Metacritic by a mile. So my goal is going for Ocarina of Time.
Crikey.
It is one of the best Zelda games. It's not the best Zelda game. It's probably third in my view, but it's better than Breath of the Wild. So it's getting my goal.
So it's 1-1
Oh dear.
So your deciding goal
into
for
the
this.
final minute.
Into the final minute, coming up at the back post. The cross comes in. Where does the header fall? I don't know.
This is tense.
This is
This
a tough
is
one,
tense.
isn't it? Both very good games for very different reasons. Ocarina of Time, yeah, fantastic. Maybe the best Zelda game. Maybe not. I don't know. But it's still... it's very, very good. But Street Fighter 2 is, like you said, it's the definitive fighting game. Shit.
There's a lot of responsibility
I know.
falling on your shoulders.
This is a
now.
You
Yes,
might
when you
be
go-
responsible for both Zelda games going out of this.
Hey, I was not responsible for the last one.
You drew that too.
That was very disappointing. But the headed goal this week from the back post is going to Street Fighter 2.
Boo.
I'm afraid so. It just had
Cutting
to
to
be
all
that
the Zelda
way.
fans crying in the stands.
I know.
To be fair, we could get lynched for this kind of thing.
Yeah.
They're quite. The Nintendo fans are quite
We have
passionate.
a lot of Nintendo in here. To
We
be
have.
fair,
Yeah.
we do have a lot of
We
Nintendo.
might not in the next round.
Yeah, the thing
And
with that,
also, it's Street Fighter 2. The definitive version of Street Fighter 2 was on the Super Nintendo as well.
Yeah, indeed.
also true.
Unquestionably.
Yeah,
I
I just feel like in that situation, had it been Breath of the Wild versus Street Fighter 2, I might have gone Breath of the Wild.
I'd
Yeah.
have gone the other way, so it's
So it's fine lines, isn't it?
is.
It
really
fine
is.
lines at this stage, but Street Fighter makes it through. Crikey.
no VAR referral.
Fighting its way through, dragon uppercutting its way into the
Hadoukening
quarterfinals.
the hell out of it.
That's right.
I'm disappointed with that.
I bet you are.
But at the same point, if it was Twilight Princess, I'd be more upset. So right. So moving on to Uncharted 2 versus Civ 4.
Oh no, you've got the first vote on this one.
Andy's got the caster. That's interesting.
Oh, this is like choosing between your children. I love Civ 4. I absolutely adore it. Like I said, most of the games that you play of that are longer than you spend with any other game. But Uncharted 2 is just the best game ever made. It's just a series of action set pieces that just like smash you from all angles. There's no fat on those bones. It's just all tasty meat. So I'm going for the tastiest game, which is Uncharted 2.
That's getting clipped. You saying it's all tasty. I'll tell you that for nothing. Well, to be 100% honest, I am not crazy about either of these games.
No.
I'm not crazy about either of them. I think Uncharted 2, if you like pushing boxes around,
Don't
in
start
lots of,
with your box
in
pushing
lots of
nonsense.
like predefined, fucking really obvious platforming sections, then it's great. Those parts of Uncharted I did find incredibly tedious. And it was the same in the third one, to be perfectly honest. Was there a fourth one? Yeah, there was.
Fourth one was amazing. Third one was terrible.
Third
Well,
one
not terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't as good.
It wasn't as good. Two is the definitive Uncharted game.
Yeah, it's just I just found it a bit like samey, the gameplay, and I've never quite liked the action in Uncharted. The shooting is only okay.
Yeah.
What makes Uncharted great is those set piece moments and the cutscenes and all that good Naughty Dog stuff. So yeah, and I do enjoy that part, but I don't really enjoy the actual gameplay. It's a bit like The Last of Us from the same fucking studio, right? It's a bit of
Yeah.
the same problem. I like the game as a whole, but the actual gameplay in it, I'm not a massive fan of. That said, I've played a lot of Civilization, but not Civ 4. I think I played Civ 2 was a big one that I played. If that was sort of mid-2000s, something like that. Very, very good. Incredibly frustrating, but also a massive time sink. Like, you have no concept of time anymore when you're playing Civ. You can just fire it up and go for fucking hours and
And then
hours
it's Wednesday,
and hours. Yeah, and it's brilliantly designed, and it has the ability to hook you in all kinds of weird ways and get you changing the way how you thought you were going to play the game. You set out in one thing, something happens, and you completely switch it up. So both games, I'm not a huge fan of either, but they both have their merits, and I'm going to give my goal in this case. I'm going to send a bit of love the way of the Naughty Dog, so it's going to go goal for Uncharted 2.
So, Andy, have we got a consolation for Civ 4?
No, 3-0 to Uncharted 2.
Okay.
I mean, I just a quick chat about Civilization. I've spoken about this before. I just struggle with that kind of strategy. I find them stressful. There's just too many things to think about. There's too many things to worry about, and I'll have forgotten about one little thing that's going on over there, and find like half my game has been destroyed by a little gribbly thing working away in the corner, and like
I don't think that's as bad on Civ 4, just because it does it's turn-based, so you've got all the time you need to do that. But also, down in the bottom right-hand corner, it won't let you end turn until you've either confirmed, you've either done something with all your units, or you've said, I don't want to do anything with that unit.
Right.
So I've always found that a bit easier. But anyway, I think Uncharted 2 is a worthy 3-0 winner. But
Yeah, I think so.
yeah. It's a really good game.
It's
really
a tough
good,
one. It's a
entertaining
tough
game.
one for Civ as well,
Yeah,
because it's up against a very different kind of game.
Hey, there are no easy games in the World Cup of video games.
that does send Uncharted 2 in to face Street Fighter 2 in the quarterfinal.
Hello, Vicar.
So, moving on, we have Shadow of the Colossus versus Micro Machines 2 Turbo Tournament.
And that's you to
Si
start
to
this
start.
one, Si.
No, oh yeah, it is, isn't it? Well, there was a lot of love for fucking Micro Machines last week when it knocked out Breath of the Wild in a ridiculous set of circumstances.
He's carrying resentment
I know.
into this week, isn't he?
The worst thing is that this might affect my goal.
That was bullshit. Let's just be clear.
You had the chance to win it on a penalty
So
shootout.
yeah, and I drew a fucking 2. So that's no good for anyone. But what it is good for right now is a clear world-class long-range goal for Shadow of the Colossus.
Okay.
One of the best games of all time, I think we can all agree on. 1-0, Shadow Colossus.
Okay. Andy.
Okay. I absolutely adore Micro Machines 2. I mean, and it was a really definitive game for me at a very, very kind of like particular moment in my life, and I loved everything about it. It was such a beautifully crafted game, and I've banged on about it on previous episodes
that's true.
1,001 times, so I won't get into too much detail. Shadow of the Colossus, on the other hand, is one of the most innovative, beautifully drawn, really creative, playable, and just most wonderful games that I've ever played. And I had friends just in awe watching me play it, and they had no interest in picking it up because they were worried they weren't going to be good enough. They've been so dragged into the kind of cinematicness, if that's a word, of the game. And it's just beautiful set piece after beautiful set piece, just of these big creatures, just so creative, everything. I'm going to stop banging on about it now. Shadow of the Colossus scores the second goal,
Nice.
2-0. It's a fucking brilliant video game.
Yeah, I'm going to put my vote towards Shadow of the Colossus 2. It is just a beautiful game. It's a beautiful story. Micro Machines is excellent. I probably would have, for a laugh, just given him a goal if Andy had did as well, just to make Si annoyed. But yeah, I think Shadow of the Colossus is a worthy quarter-finalist. It again, I've bought it on 3 different consoles and I've enjoyed it 3 times, so I don't regret doing that. And there's very few games that I would buy on multiple consoles.
I think a bit of a shout out for the remaster as well.
It's really, really good looking. And I'm very surprised that something like Monster Hunter hasn't taken what Shadow of the Colossus did and done that, because it's far more interesting getting a giant monster climbing up him, finding the weak points, than it is just constantly hitting it with an axe.
Making a puzzle, almost a puzzle out of it.
Absolutely.
Like an action puzzle, making it a way of creatively trying to find the weaknesses and things like that.
That Monster Hunter thing was a bit of a fucking failure, wasn't it?
No, it's got
people like it?
People love it, but
It looked rubbish to me.
it feels rubbish to me. But
Yeah.
I don't understand, because imagine if you had something the size of Skyrim and you had all these giants walking around,
Yeah.
and you as a team could take that down. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
That's what I thought Monster Hunter
Yeah.
was. But I imagined it was Shadow of the Colossus, but on a much bigger scale, and it's not. It's really not.
It's just these whacking great big creatures running around, and you just have to batter them with your sword.
Yeah.
And like hit and roll, and like that. And it's just. I mean,
time for
it's
that.
not for me.
No, indeed.
Not for me.
No. So we're moving on to the next round of 16.
Yeah, sorry, just as an aside,
Yes.
are there no From Software games in this list? No Dark Souls, no Demon Souls,
No,
no Bloodborne?
because they're all terrible.
I agree wholeheartedly, but I'm just interested. But
They weren't-
in the Metacritic. They weren't up there.
No. Bear in mind that I think, although they rate highly with the gamers, I don't think as many sort of like websites give them like 10 out of 10s or whatever.
Right.
Whereas you'll get a lot of these games will have been given 10 out of 10s on multiple.
You saying there's
platforms.
a lot of Dark Souls fanboys out there?
No, I think it's more that with those sort of independent, difficult games, they tend to be a bit more realistic with their scoring. Whereas with these like big, massive sort of like, multi-platform games, they tend to get a little bit more hype. Right. And therefore, the scores tend to be a little bit inflated. So it may well be that these scores are more inflated than they deserve to be.
Interesting, though.
Yeah.
I'm glad they're not in it.
No, me too.
Because they're fucking shit.
They suck. That's a little sad song from Software. Stop making crap games. So, moving on to the next round of 16 game, we have Skyrim versus Super Mario Kart to face up against Shadow of the Colossus in the next round.
Crikey.
So, Andy, I believe you're starting this one.
Oh, am I? So, sorry. It's,
Skyrim and Super Mario Kart.
That's a toughie, but to be honest with you, not so much for me. It's a big tie. There's no doubt about it. But Super Mario Kart, I think it's one of the best games of all time. I think it was genre, as I said earlier, genre defining. It's incredibly playable. And again, I've applied this to other games, but really easy to pick up. Absolutely nails to master it. So
even after the introduction of the fucking blue shell,
no,
the bloody blue
this is
shell.
Super Mario Kart. We're not having any blue shell.
Yes, I mean, and it as well. And it seemed because it was on the Super Nintendo, and it seemed to get the very, very best out of that console. It really did, because like the processing wise, the Super Nintendo was always a little bit slower than the Mega Drive, and it didn't handle things quite as quickly. And yet Super Mario Kart had all of the pace and the speed and everything. They're kind of like the 3D world that you never really got in video games back then. Certainly not to that kind of speed. Yeah. Just wonderfully executed. So yes, a goal for Super Mario Kart for me.
Yeah, this is closer than I thought it would be in terms of I'm thinking about it. And I'm going, Andy's right about it being genre defining because as a racing game, I don't normally like them, but that just gripped me. I played it so much. Yeah. Even the N64 version, I just played an absolute ton of. But it's got to be Skyrim for me. I have spent so many hours in that world, and I absolutely adore it. It's so immersive. I can't think of a game that has been more immersive than that. So it's got to be Skyrim for me.
Well, if you're talking about two genre-defining games, you've got two right there.
Yeah,
with very different genres. I think Mario Kart stands alone as a game in a way. It's very different from almost everything else. It's one of those few games that you could pull out at any party and everybody is going to want to have a play of Mario Kart. And I think on the new one as well, they've captured a lot of that same thing. And that's one thing that they've done really well, I think, Nintendo. They've managed to maintain the core thing, the thing that makes Mario Kart good. They've maintained it on almost every edition of that game. Because you pick it up and you play it, and every time you almost forget which version of Mario Kart it is, because it still feels the same, and the kind of the look and the style that goes with it. For me, the graphics are amazing now, but it's still the same as the original Mario Kart, really. Mario Kart 8 they've done a fantastic job with that, and the music is great, the track designs are fantastic, the characters are really cool. One thing that pissed me off, Matt, it's nothing to do with you, I'm just pointing at you.
That's fine.
Fucking like sponsored content in Mario Kart 8, you can get like a Mercedes and drive that around.
Oh, fuck off.
No, that is a thing.
Really? I'm not buying that.
Very annoying.
I don't like on the later ones as well is if you go off a ramp, it almost becomes an on-rails part for a bit, and then until you land.
It's changed a little bit.
Yeah. That's why Super Mario Kart was the
daddy.
And it was interesting because so Mario Kart 64, I think, was one of the worst Mario Kart games, and it was obviously the first one that they kind of took on afterwards. And it's because they tried to do too many different things, and they thought, wow, look what amazing stuff we can do. So we'll have people flying up all over the shop, and they tried all of those kind of different styles of kind of the game, and they took it too far away from what it made it so good. And but and they're really good at this, Nintendo. They realized what they had done wrong, so in later versions they reined a lot of that stuff back in. So I think they've been really good at being kind of quite disciplined with the way they've pulled the game around.
Except the bloody blue shell.
Yeah.
You should just turn that off. It's fine.
But
But
and it's a big but.
And I cannot lie.
Skyrim's one of the greatest games ever made.
So is Mario Kart.
And remains on the many, many different versions, as we've talked about, to be fantastic and engaging and have a level of like character management and growth that you don't see in many games that is still accessible. And I remember when I was first tooling around, and you learn a lot as well when you're playing it, because your hand isn't held at all to begin with. And one of the key elements is basically harvesting souls as you kill things and storing them in these gems you can then later use to enhance your character, right? And I just didn't get that, so I played the game for like 3 hours before I even worked out what the fuck to do with these bad boys. And then when I found out, somebody gave me a sword or something that captured the souls for me, and I was like, shit! And then all of a sudden I was like, what the fuck can I do with these gems? And then you look into that, and then, like I said last week, I'm sitting at work, like thinking, fuck, well, if I go there, I can pick up that thing from that guy, I can take that to this place, and I can put, and then you're like building up this whole thing in your brain, and it becomes so addictive. It's so much fun.
It's the only game I've ever bought the guide for. You know, that big thick book.
Oh, yeah.
And it's basically, you open it up and you can see every single dungeon and stuff like that. I used to sit there and just read it, because it's just wonderful.
Amazing.
Just looking at the lore, looking at the levels of all the enemies, looking at, oh, look, that's where... It's just brilliant.
It is a bit Games Workshop, though, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
So
Yes,
on
it is.
Metallica patches.
Yeah. And for that
Slayer
reason,
t-shirts.
I'm going to Hosroda
Crossroader.
my way into the quarterfinals with a goal for Skyrim.
You're just gutted because in 2030, when the next Elder Scrolls comes out, you're not going to see us for 6 months.
Well done, Skyrim.
Well done, Skyrim.
Well done,
So
Skyrim.
yeah, that sets up a big tie against Shadow of the Colossus. So that's
Oh my goodness,
that's a
are you
big
kidding
one.
me?
No, that's a
Wow.
quarter-final.
Holy shit.
So moving on, we have Grand Theft Auto 5 versus The Secret of Monkey Island.
And I believe it's you to start
It
this
is.
one.
Grand Theft Auto 5. Secret of Monkey Island.
I've got to go with Monkey Island for me.
Fuck off.
Right, well, that's the first bit of news. So, no. The reason for this is it's just one of the games of my childhood, like those formative. I mean, I preferred actually Monkey Island 2 to the first Monkey Island.
Yeah.
But the comedy through it, I really like point and click adventures. I really do. I don't know if you ever played Beneath a Steel Sky.
I love Beneath a Steel Sky.
It was so good.
I also love The Dig. Do you remember The Dig?
Yeah.
That was fucking great.
I love all of it.
Shut up, Andy.
I can also see Andy's point, which is that there's not much there. It's like you scroll your mouse over the thing until you find something, and then you go, eat this. No, you can't do that. Put this with this.
Yeah.
No, you can't do it. And a lot of especially with Monkey Island and Sam and Max and things like that, some of those puzzles were a little bit
esoteric.
very much so.
Yes.
But
the worst was Discworld. Do you remember the Discworld?
Yeah.
Like, fucking impossible. None of the puzzles made any sense. It would be like, well, I know you haven't done it now, but what you should have done, you should have taken the gnome, you should have taken him, put him in the river, and then rubbed him on the head of a dog, and that would have given you the key. And you're like, how the fuck am I supposed to know that?
But I remember getting it on the PC, like Monkey Island 2, and you had like 9 discs, and you had to put the one in and then load it, and then take it out and put it in, and like it's just one of my formative games in my childhood, and I love the characters, I love the story, and I really
Insult
enjoy
fighting.
that game. Whereas Grand Theft Auto 5, I had a great time. I don't think I like it as much as you guys do, because I preferred like Vice City, just because Vice City soundtrack was just incredible.
Good.
But Grand Theft Auto 5, there was like 2 entire radio stations full of that music.
That is
like,
also true. Wait your turn.
But I just
Get back in your
I
box.
actually looked up the soundtrack from Vice City before I came over here, and it had like things like it had Slayer's Rain in Blood, but it also had Cutting Crew, Died in Your Arms Tonight and stuff like that. It's just like there's so much good 80s music on there. But I think I've got to go with Monkey Island, so Monkey Island gets my vote.
Very nice. Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing that I know for sure is that if you look at Vice City now, it looks like absolute shit.
Oh, yeah. And I agree, but if you look at Monkey Island now, it looks like shit.
That is true, but it still has a nice, beautiful art design. I think,
Well, they
Monkey Island.
redid sort of like they did new Monkey Islands as well.
Yeah,
So.
and the insult fighting is brilliant. And
Yeah.
a fantastic idea in a genre of stuff like video games where they are synonymous with violence and fighting. It is incredibly cool and kind of subversive at that time to do something like that with the combat in the game.
Yeah,
I think it's
indeed.
fucking brilliant, and they are fantastically written and very funny, lovely design. But versus GTA 5, get out.
I'm under
Get
no illusion
out
that
of
Monkey
town.
Island is going. I just felt I had to give it a sympathy vote
You did,
for my
and
childhood.
I appreciate that, but no, fucking GTA 5 is right up there with the greatest games ever made. And not only is it a fantastic game and lots of fun, but it is also, and maybe even more so, an incredible achievement in video game design.
Yes.
It is astonishing what they have done with that game. And not only in the original single player, which is fucking great from start to finish through the story, including a brilliant final mission and ending that still leaves you wanting more in a world that you've already spent 60 hours playing. Oh my god, that ending is fucking great. And then the fact that they've managed to sell, it's the most sold video game of all time. I think we talked about this before. Over 90 million copies in all different formats, which is the greatest selling piece of media, let alone video game of all time. Sold way more than Michael Jackson's Thriller, if you can possibly imagine.
mental.
But not only were they satisfied with that, but they've continued to maintain the game over a long period of time, never giving us the single player content DLC they promised us, never giving us that, but supplying all the guys that wanted to play online with great content for 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Absolutely amazing. 1 goal, Stonewall penalty for GTA 5.
And like 7 seconds later from the kickoff, like somebody runs across, tackles the Monkey Island guy, and then launches it from 50 yards into the top right hand corner. Grand Theft Auto 5 is an absolute masterpiece. I honestly don't know how they're going to top it. Don't get me wrong, they may well do, but I just think it works on so many levels. It's incredible. It's so well scripted. It's so well acted. It's engaging. It's funny. It's heartrending. It's all of those things, whilst also being one of the best. And this is a big thing for Grand Theft Auto 5 as well, is they got the shooting right, which they hadn't really done before that game. I think they were getting to on number 4, but on previous games, the shooting was really shonky. So it was a really, really well executed third-person shooter in a big open world game like that. It's one of the best driving games of all time. Like, it's better than most driving games.
That's a low bar.
Well, yeah, fine. But given that it's going up against games whose only purpose,
fair point.
Yeah.
That's a very, very good point.
It's also one of the best flying games of all time.
Yeah.
Like it, all of these things, it does better than nearly all of the games that are specialists in those areas.
Yeah, in the games they feel seamless and just like a distraction. Right?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
It's brilliant.
Like I cannot praise that game highly enough. Yes, there are bits of it that not ideal. We mentioned it in a previous edition. It wouldn't kill him to have a female main protagonist. Pretty sure we'll get one in the next game.
Sure.
But all of that said, an absolute fucking masterpiece of a video game. I really, really think it is. And so, yeah.
So that's Monkey Island, right? Right. So we have Grand Theft Auto 5 into the next round to meet either God of War or Tetris.
Bloody hell.
and you're starting
this is
this
very
on site.
difficult, isn't it? I mean, clearly we're in a position here. We got a clash of styles and ages and everything else. Very, very hard to actually pick because at least with those, with the games we discussed before, they're kind of in the same ballpark at least. But this is on another level, so it's hard to judge because I'm not sure. I just want to judge based on the impact and the importance of Tetris because obviously, as it goes, is an extremely important game. But it is also a game from the 1980s, and it is also a game that's incredibly basic and has limited long-term play. I think it would be maybe a little bit hipstery of me to try and push too hard on the Tetris side because God of War is an amazing achievement again in modern video games, and video games are one of those genres where it does necessarily get better with time.
Yes, yeah.
Like it's not like in the movies, there's many movies from the 50s, 60s, 70s that are better than, in fact, most are better than the ones that are released
Casablanca
today.
is absolutely incredible.
Yes.
But also, Gone with the Wind is awful. So it's
true.
It's difficult to gauge that.
But there's no bar based on time in movies. That's the thing. Whereas with games, a game released in 1980 is necessarily going to be worse than a game released in 2018, purely because of the quality of the materials that the designers are using, basically. So I'm gonna give my goal to God of War. I really enjoyed it. I thought it had an excellent story. I thought it was acted well. I thought the game mechanics were good, and I thought it was always fun from start to finish.
I'm going to start this without knowing where I'm giving my goal. So
can I just say it was a very unfair of Sai to say I can't be a hipster and defend Tetris, thus making if we vote for Tetris we're hipsters. Next one, I'm going to go well. Obviously, anyone who doesn't vote for Uncharted 2 is a murderer.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not worried about being called a hipster by a bunch of like Games Workshop Warhammer geeks like you guys. So
do you want us to do more dragon shouts?
Tetris is, I mean, in the definitive version of Tetris is the Game Boy version, right? I mean, because obviously it's been released in 1,000 different ways and 1,000 different consoles. But the Game Boy version was incredible. It's one of the most kind of instantly pick-upable, if that's a word, and playable games that's incredibly good fun. And I remember being on the school bus, like on the way to like a day trip away or something like that, and people would just be passing the Game Boy around and everybody would have a go. And Tetris was perfect for that. And people just played it again and again and again. It had amazing replayability. I do think part of that is because the standard of other games at that point were not as good, and the longevity of other video games was not as high. So I think what it was up against was less good, if that makes sense. So as a result, it kind of it looked
held
good.
in high regard. Yeah.
Yes. God of War. I mean, I was not even. I remember seeing a friend of mine, an old flatmate of mine, playing one of the old God of War games, and I thought, fucking, what is this dog shit this guy's playing? Wasn't at all bothered by it whatsoever. Then saw you guys playing it, even though you talked about it in such kind of with such fondness. I wasn't that bothered. But in the end, thought, well, why not? And I think you gave me. I should have brought it back actually. By the way,
don't worry.
So you let me your copy of it, which I have now finished. And totally sold by it. I think the
story was phenomenal. Wasn't it? It really was.
It's really just massive, really moving story, really well executed. And like, I was cynical about parts of the way the story were going to play out before I started playing it, but I was totally hooked in on it. And just thoroughly entertaining to play.
Yeah.
Just really entertaining. I thought I'd get bored by the kind of the slashing and hacking and all of that stuff, but didn't for a second.
It's like a blockbuster action movie.
Yeah,
isn't
it is. And it's just really, really satisfying to play. I can't speak highly enough of it, partly because it completely overturned my expectations. So I'm going to have to make a decision, and I'm going to give a goal to God of War.
Nice.
I pressed the button twice and it had 22 goals.
That's a bit much.
It was a bit much. But I was thinking about Tetris. I was thinking I should go for that in terms of its impact. It's also the fact that it's it's a really, really old game and it still stands up. You could pick that up today and you'd still have a good time with it. It still works the same way. It's not like the graphics mean anything in Tetris. So
No.
I think it's one of the greatest games in terms of that. But God of War, what you've just talked about is like exactly right. It didn't outstay its welcome. There was extra content if you wanted to do it, but you didn't have to. But the story in there, like the characterization in there, but combined with good gameplay.
Yes.
You know, I'm currently playing. Well, I've currently just stopped playing Horizon Zero Dawn, and the characters in that are so one-dimensional.
Yeah.
And you compare that to God of War, where they're flawed characters. They've all got different problems, but you can completely understand why they're acting the way they are. It's just such a wonderful game, and the fact that it's fun to play at the same time just makes it such a great game. So it's getting 3-0.
Nice.
Excellent.
There we go.
That does mean we've got Grand Theft Auto 5 up against God of War in the next round. Okay, so coming up, we have Goldeneye versus Fortnite.
Is this the final
This is weird.
second round game?
We've got another.
Okay. Okay, so who's starting this?
You are.
You're
starting
this.
Goldeneye versus Fortnite, and you were the guy who got us into Fortnite, and you do adore it.
I do. Goldeneye was I'm going to say the same about Fortnite, but Goldeneye was an absolute revolution. You know how I spoke about what Micro Machines did for multiplayer game. I think Goldeneye did that for multiplayer games. I think it was. I remember my flatmate at university had an N64, and he kind of like, oh, you've got to play this game, and like we said, oh, playing this tiny little square in the corner of your TV, and I'm not really sure how that's going to work. And he said, no, you've got to. And then like. We did that, and then like 2 days later, we hadn't done a single other thing, and we'd just been sat there in his room playing Goldeneye, and it was complete game changer. Again, talked about it before about other games, but genre defining in every single way. I think it was so good. Fortnite Battle Royale. I mean, it is one of the most fun games I've ever played, but part of that again is playing it what it's doing for multiplayer games. I mean, admittedly, what Overwatch did the same thing for us in terms of the way we enjoy games as a group. So part of what's enjoyable about Fortnite is that dynamic, but admittedly, that's exactly the same thing with GoldenEye as well. So I don't know. It's a really difficult one to call. And nostalgia wants me to, because of the fun times I had for GoldenEye. Nostalgia wants me to give it to GoldenEye, but the fact that I'm still constantly playing Fortnite all of the time at the moment makes me want to give it to Fortnite. Not really sure. It's difficult to say, but it's going into the top left-hand corner for Fortnite.
Oh, there we go. I wasn't sure I was going to go that way.
Okay, I was thinking about GoldenEye, you know, the whole nostalgia thing and things. But I've got to give it to Fortnite. So I'm just going to come out and say it. Fortnite is going through. The reason being that they took what PUBG had done, and there were a lot of accusations of copying, But what they've done is they've actually added content constantly to it that PUBG hasn't. So PUBG stood still going, oh, hang on, you've stolen our ideas. All the time, Fortnite was evolving.
Yes.
It was making sure that people weren't getting bored. It was changing stuff because the gamers wanted it. And it's effectively now the pinnacle of Battle Royale games. There have been quite a few coming out over the last few months that have just died instantly because they're not Fortnite. Because Fortnite has done such a great job.
There's another big one coming out soon, isn't there?
Is there?
Realm Royale?
Realm Royale, I've watched a bit of that. It doesn't seem like my thing, but a few of the streamers are playing it. But Fortnite, what they have done with that game in terms of keeping it fresh, keeping it alive, and just taking an idea that someone else had done and making it very good, it's got to be Fortnite for me. So
I would have also given, in the position I would have put Fortnite through as well. I think the trick with it really is that they've made it fun. One of the big criticisms that we had about The Division, which was a good multiplayer game that had a lot of good mechanics in it and had potential to be great, was that it was so po-faced and so bloody dour, you know. And Fortnite has realised that, and PUBG is a bit like that as well. Yeah. You make your own fun in PUBG, and to an extent you do in Fortnite, but they facilitate the fun so much better because you can push each other around in shopping carts and shoot at llamas and all the dances and everything else. And it's become so much more than a game. It's a cultural phenomenon. I mean, the England players at the real World Cup were doing the dances from Fortnite when they were scoring. So, you know, it has gone beyond video games, and that's very cool. But because I have the option to do so, I am going to give a consolation goal to Goldeneye for that nostalgia and the fact it was bloody brilliant, but it was bloody brilliant 20 years ago.
Agreed. So, who is going to face Fortnite in the final?
Is this the final? Is this the final group? Final
yes,
round 2?
And I'm annoyed that I'm going first with this one because it's Tony Hawk 2 versus Overwatch.
Jesus,
that's a tough one.
Now I just need to say I adored both of these games while I was playing them. Absolutely adored. I've already talked about Tony Hawk's 2 a bit. Overwatch was a real surprise to me. When I first heard about it, I thought, I'm not going to be interested in that. We played the beta and something got me. It really got me. And then I bought it instantly, started playing it, and I got massively addicted. I played a lot of Overwatch. You guys then jumped in and I had so much fun playing it with you. I've got a minor criticism for Blizzard in that they haven't been quite as good as who does Fortnite? Epic. In terms of keeping it fresh, in terms of they have added extra content, but I haven't particularly enjoyed a significant amount of the extra content. But that doesn't make it a worse game because that is one of the greatest team games ever in terms of, like, I absolutely adore it. So I'm going to have to give it to Overwatch just because the amount I played and the fact of that it is a glorious game. Like I said, it's died off a bit for me with some of the changes, but they've recently put a hamster in that looks funny. So I'm probably going to go back to it. And that's what's quite nice is if they keep doing these little sort of weird changes, I will start dipping back in and out of it. But yeah, I think Overwatch, just for those 2 years of absolute addiction to it, have to go in. So a goal for Overwatch.
Well, I know Andy's sitting there worried about what's going to happen here, but he doesn't have to because I'm going to make his life very, very easy. Because for me, it's an absolute no-brainer giving this to Overwatch and putting them through to the final. Never been a massive, I like a bit of quarterfinal. It's a quarterfinal. I like a bit of skateboarding, but it's nothing to get too excited about. And there's all kinds of those kinds of games, and a little bit, I suppose, in a way. Like for me, if there was a game in that kind of style, I might think of Burnout or something like that maybe follows the same kind of rules that I would prefer. A little bit more SSX tricky or something like that. But for me, Overwatch is the single best online multiplayer game I've ever played. Yeah. We were playing it for 2 years straight, and we might still even get more out of it. So it's absolutely guaranteed goal for Overwatch.
On that basis, you have made it easy for me. I mean, I actually think I would have put Overwatch through anyway. But now I can, likewise, you did in the last game, I can now give a consolation goal to Tony Hawk.
And it does deserve it.
It does, because, I mean, just the amount of time and fun that I had with that when I was at university, we just utterly addicted to that game, and it just a perfectly executed game. So consolation goal, but Overwatch deservedly going through.
Overwatch goes through to face Fortnite in the quarterfinal.
Oh, there we go.
Brazil, Belgium.
Andy is suddenly looking a bit twitchy.
Right, Matt, give us the quarterfinals.
So the quarterfinals will be Street Fighter 2 versus Uncharted 2. Oh, don't do it. Don't do it to me. Shadow of the Colossus versus Skyrim. Grand Theft Auto 5 versus God of War.
Oh, yeah. God of War's done well, hasn't it, to get through?
Yeah.
And Fortnite versus Overwatch.
Crikey,
Jesus
we've done well here, lads. These are good games.
Yeah, they are.
We have not
There
messed
is
up.
not a dud in there.
Right. Well,
Halo did not make it this far.
Good. Well, how do you feel about that? Gents, do you think
You're going to send
you feel
Uncharted.
happy?
You're going to send Uncharted 2 home, and I'm very sad about this.
I mean, we never said we were going seeking to find the best game of all time.
But we might.
But we might.
We might.
We what we've done is we've come up with some really, really, really big hitting games.
Yeah.
Like duking it out.
And I think well reasoned. I don't think any. There's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
nobody's got anywhere for free in this tournament.
No, and Breath of the Wild does not deserve to be keeping this
I know.
company. So,
Well, Jesus Christ. Yeah, well, let's see. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to leave you once again on tenterhooks, and we're going to come back in another week's time, and we will decide the fate of the final 8 games. If you can possibly... wait that
I
long.
can't take the tension.
So in that meantime, please check out idiotgamer.co.uk. Please find us on idiot_gamer on Twitter, and listen to us on TuneIn Radio, on Spotify, or here on Podbean, or wherever the hell you want to find us. And so, Andy, it's just that time for you to say goodbye.
Yeah, cheerio, everyone.
And Matthew.
Bye.
And gents, we'll see you next time on the Idiot Gamer podcast.